Hi, good evening. Thank you all for coming. My name is Rodolfo and this is Andressa. We'll be introducing you guys to the third course Research in Boston. Here in the screen are Professor Godleski and also Professor John Godleski and also Jason from the Harvard office here in São Paulo, and he's in Harvard today, so that's why he's on the screen. And here in this course, we're going to present you about the FMUSP and AGSPH, the Harvard School of Public Health exchange program. And in this program, you guys are going to stay 1 year doing research, basic research at Harvard School of Public Health. And there you have the opportunities to know a lot of Harvard professors and also do a lot of research and learn a lot from there. The students that came this year most of them had their work, have already or are going to have their work published. And I think for almost all of them, the experience was amazing. So you don't only learn about research, but you also learn about having responsibilities there and living by yourself, and it's a great opportunity to personal and professional growth. So here in an AGSPH office, there's Professor Godleski that he's going to present you a bit about the exchange program. Professor Godleski, you may start if you want.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, very good. What I want to talk to you about today is some general principles of research and talk to you really about what is research. And research needs to be thought about discovery. And it's discovery that follows from ideas. And so when you're doing research, you're dealing with ideas. The next line will talk about the principles of research. And the principles of research always start with knowledge and ideas. And if we can have the next line, you'll see that we list knowledge and ideas, and knowledge and ideas will next be the basis of your hypothesis. And your hypothesis is a prediction of what will be found by the research. Now, this is very important. Many people start thinking about research and they start thinking about all the different things they have to know and what they want to know. But the most important basis of research is the hypothesis, the idea or prediction of what will be found by the research. Where is the research going? When I talk to students about their research, I will always ask them, what is your hypothesis? What are you testing? What are you trying to understand? If you don't know the hypothesis, you can't really understand the research. Now, the next topic is methods. Methods are what you do in a laboratory or what you do in your mind to test the hypothesis. And so if you want to learn something about the heart and the electrocardiogram is your primary method of studying it, you have to learn how that method is how that's collected and what it means to learn to collect an electrocardiogram. But in addition to collecting it, you are collecting it for a reason. So as you do this collection, you may be making modifications in the animal, or you may be asking a patient to exercise in order to make changes in this electrocardiogram. So your prediction might be that when this patient exercises, they will have a different pattern to their electrocardiogram that will show that the patient's heart is having ischemia. You could do this with an animal as well, and so that you could test the hypothesis that something you did to this animal has caused their heart to be different. And this can all be learned from the method of the electrocardiogram. So the next point is that what you collect in the form of the electrocardiogram is data. And data is defined as the results of your methods. So that when you are now collecting that material, it's going into a computer so that you can come back, and in the next slide you can see that you will analyze this. And analysis is working with the data, including statistical evaluation, so that you can see if under one condition the electrocardiogram was one way and you could measure the height of a portion of it, and in the other condition the electrocardiogram changed in that parameter, so you have a different height, and then you might do a statistical evaluation to compare those two heights. And then once you've done that, the next topic is that you will interpret that and you will draw conclusions from it. So anytime you're doing research, these principles follow. You first have a question or idea based on some degree of knowledge. You form a hypothesis and you apply methods. You get data. You do analysis. And you finally interpret. These are very basic principles. Very often they're not taught or reiterated, but they are very important. And I bring these up at this point so you understand what all the steps are that you will be taking in anything that you do here, so that this becomes very important as a way of proceeding. Now, you can't do this if you're standing in the corner and watching what's going on. You have to be doing it. And this program is a hands-on, you do it kind of thing. It's not that you stand and watch. I've been getting a lot of emails from people in Brazil saying they want to come to my lab, or they're in a lab and they're watching and they've seen what's done and now they want to come to my lab and watch what's going on. When you come here, you don't watch. You become part of the team and you work on the studies. Next slide. Let me give you my personal view of research. The next line points out that tomorrow I'm going back to where I went to medical school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it's my 45th reunion of my medical school graduation. You can see by doing the math that I was obviously a child genius and graduated very young. However, when I was in medical school, the next line points out that I did research with one mentor throughout my 4 years of medical school. Now that's kind of unusual in the United States, but not entirely. And in the University of Sao Paulo, I know you have research opportunities. Whether those research opportunities are hands-on are really what you make of it. Now, I was fortunate that I was able to work with a person who began to see that I was interested, that I was capable, and I enjoyed research. And so he was very supportive that I could come into his lab in the evening and do experiments. I could do it on weekends or whatever time that I had, and I really enjoyed doing this. And the next line shows that As I finished medical school, I had 2 first author papers from my medical school research, and I had 1 co-authored paper where I was a middle author. But the fact was that because I was able to do research and because I was doing the research, I was the hands-on person doing it, I wasn't forming all the hypotheses. Your mentors generally have a better idea about this. But if you can do the work, then you're able to write the papers and get that benefit from it. Now, the next line says that the subjects of my 3 papers are still very important topics in medicine. And I think you'll learn a couple of things from this. The next slide shows the topics that I studied in medical school. The first is the genetics of cancer. Now, when I was studying the genetics of cancer, we were looking at chromosomes and we were measuring and looking at chromosomes. There's still a lot of that kind of research that goes on. But the genetics of cancer as a field of research has blossomed in 45 years with thousands upon thousands of studies that have moved us forward in our understanding of cancer, our understanding of the carcinogenic process, the understanding of how to better treat cancer as we've understood how the genetics of tumors change and how certain genetic patterns in tumors may be more susceptible to chemotherapy. So this particular topic of my student research continues to be a very active field in research almost 50 years later. The next area that I studied was the transmission of infection. I was looking at the viral disease of mononucleosis and how it's transmitted among students. And the transmission of infection remains an important area of research today. The next area that I studied had to do with inflammation in cancer. And inflammation is both a response to cancer as well as a lack of response from which the cancer can avoid inflammation and avoid the defenses of the body is a very important topic. So these topics remain important 45 years ago, 45 years later, and I can talk about the research that I did as a medical student and as a fellow, and all of these remain relevant. And it's always kind of amazing when I see some of the papers that I wrote as a student and as a fellow being cited in the literature today, and they still are. And so this is the kind of thing that you're able to do if you participate fully in a research program that allows you to be very active in a laboratory. And so what message should you take away from my experience? The next slide shows you some of the messages that I want you to take and to understand as a student about to take a year off. And a year sounds like a very long time, but it's a very, very short time. The first, I think, that you must understand is the principles of research are timeless. Leonardo da Vinci formed hypotheses. Einstein formed hypotheses. You can form hypotheses as you come to work in a laboratory. And these are the timeless principles of research. The next point is that in the way that my research didn't solve cancer, solving diseases takes a really long time and a lot of effort from a lot of people. And the contribution you make will be small, but it will all contribute to what we need to know. So the next point is that adding knowledge through research contributes to what become the major advances in science and in medicine. The next point that I want to make is that careful well-done research is publishable. And finally, I want to point out that the next point is that knowing how to do something is the first step. Doing it well because of practice and repetition is the second step. And the third step is that no job is finished until the paperwork is done. And I have this cartoon above my desk at my office that points out and always reminds me that no job is finished until the paperwork is done. But before we get to the paperwork, we really need to think about knowing how to do something as a first step. And we are working to develop videos so that you can look at these back in Sao Paulo before you even come. And when you come, in the first weeks, we'll be working with these videos and we'll give you detailed instructions on how to do things. The class of students that are here now are starting to think about how they'll put videos together so that your learning curve can be faster than it has for previous students. And so knowing how to do something is the first step. Now, in order to do research, you really have to do it well. You can't be sloppy. You can't do it in a way that is okay. You have to do it carefully and do it well. And to do it that way, sometimes you have to practice and have repetition. And so in order to do things well so that you can use that data in a publishable paper, you have to practice and you have to meet standards. And the standards are set by the laboratory. And then finally, you finish the job by writing a paper. So the last slide talks specifically about what about the Harvard USP program and research. And we have many laboratories. We have some new laboratories that will come on next year that for people to participate in. And regardless of which lab you're in, you will learn the principles of research. Those principles that I enunciated will be expanded upon with more detail, but you will learn those principles. And those principles are ones you will never forget, and you should never forget. You'll learn a number of specific methods, but those methods will be useful, but chances are the principle of the method will stay the same and be usable for years to come, but the implementation might be different, and there will be improvements on the methods year after year. So you'll see how those improvements take place. Third, we will try to teach you to be lifelong learners in whatever form of medicine you choose for a career. The idea that you learn not only specifics, you learn how to work in a laboratory, you learn in a hands-on way how to be a scientist, but also you learn how to read papers, you learn how to understand data, you learn how to understand what other people do in their research, and you learn to be critical of it. And so as you learn to do this, it's really the principles of lifelong learning, so that when you've been out of medical school 45 years, you can still apply the same principles that will allow you to evaluate a paper 45 years from now in the same way that you do now, and be able to critique that paper and understand the results. The topics we study in laboratories at HSPH all have important implications for mankind, and especially for Brazil. We study air pollution, we study asthma, we study nanotechnology. There are many, many areas of research that we have that are explained in the information that's on the websites that will become available to you. But the important thing is that this is a hands-on, do-it kind of program. It's not standing behind and watching. It's not just going to classes and listening to seminars. You do all of that. You can go to classes, but we really don't emphasize the idea that you should take courses. You're here to put in as much time and effort as you can in a laboratory where you gain the knowledge, where you discover new knowledge. And that is the objective of what we're trying to do in our program and what message we're trying to send to students of Brazil so that they can become leaders of medicine, of science within your country and within the world. And the bright students that we get in this program, there's no reason why you shouldn't expect to be a world leader in some area of medicine and have the ability, the ingenuity, and the confidence in yourself to be able to do this and do it very well. So that's what we're trying to instill in the students that come here. Many of the students will tell you it's a life-changing experience, and that life-changing experience is embedded in the idea that you gain confidence, that you understand what you're able to do and how you're able to work independently and in a successful way. That's about all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And I think if you talk to the alumni, you'll see how each of them and the principles that I've talked with have played out in their lives. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you, and I look forward to seeing you later in the month of June this year when we come to visit.
Are you listening to us?
Yep.
Okay, so if any students have any questions for Professor Godleski?
Yeah, we may have time for one or two questions, so be sure you answer it. Get the answer to your question.
To ask for being more comfortable with it, because like there's no
I have a question. So Joe, we are waiting for the students to have questions. I just wanted to ask you, usually the students come to us every year and they ask us about how does the selection process work. So you're coming here with other professors and you're selecting the students. And this is the main part of the selection process, the interview that you have here. So I would like to ask you, what do you look for when you come here to Brazil? And what advice you have for the students who are here and want to go this year to Boston?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that we look for. One is really genuine interest in doing research, in taking this year of your life to learn something new, to take advantage of an opportunity that you don't have in your school. And so the identification of real interest is important. The second thing is that it certainly helps to have participated in some of the research programs within your school And it's important, if you're participating in a research program, that you can explain that research program and the ideas and principles behind what role you might take in it, or what's being studied, even if you have a very minor role, so that a student who has a global view of the research that they're involved in, even if they have a very small part of it, it's important that they can explain both their small part as well as the big picture of that research. The third is evidence that the student is a good student, has been successful in the medical school up to that point. And the fourth is language. Language is important, that you have a good understanding of English, because very few people here can have the ability to communicate to you in Portuguese. When you get into a laboratory, you're given instruments that cost $100,000 or more to work with, and if you're not able to understand and follow directions of how to use these instruments, you have the chance of doing severe damage to a very expensive instrument. So we want you to be able to have a very good understanding of English. It's not that you have to have perfect spoken English, but it's important that you really can understand the language sufficiently well that you're not a danger to yourself or others in the laboratory situation. I think those are the main principles of what we look for in the students who come to the lab.
Okay, Professor. Thank you very much for your answer. Does anybody have